I'm gonna leave woke Star Trek. Chris Pine reportedly confronts Paramount over Starfleet Academy fallout. Something just hit the Star Trek universe like a direct impact. According to circulating reports and insider claims, Chris Pine has allegedly made a public statement that has thrown Paramount Plus into full-scale crisis mode. And the quote being repeated across entertainment circles is simple, sharp, and explosive. He is done with woke Star Trek. Not as a rumor, not as a private opinion, but as a public rejection of the direction of the franchise he once led as Captain Kirk in the Kelvin timeline of the Star Trek universe. And that single claim has reportedly triggered one of the most chaotic PR situations Paramount has faced in years. Why this moment is different from everything before. There is nothing new about controversy in Hollywood. It is not uncommon for actors to depart franchises. Disagreements of a creative kind are continuously taking place behind closed doors. This circumstance is distinct due to the fact that it simultaneously incorporates three volatile elements: a science fiction property with a long history, a main actor who is known all over the world, and a cultural discussion that is already politically charged and dividing people. The end result is not limited to news about entertainment. This is a crisis of identity for a franchise that is taking place in real time. The alleged interview, where it all began. The dispute reportedly started when Chris Pine was being interviewed for a promotional project that was not related to Star Trek. Multiple reports have come to this conclusion. Whenever a question was posed about returning to Star Trek, the response that was anticipated was the typical Hollywood response. Anything that is diplomatic, something that is not predetermined, something that is secure. Instead, the allegations suggest that Pine went in a very other direction. He supposedly addressed his departure from the franchise openly, portraying it not as a schedule conflict or a career progression, but rather as a creative disagreement with the direction that modern Star Trek narrative is taking. The core claim, why he says he left. According to some accounts, he characterized the early Star Trek as exploratory and optimistic hope centered on the narrative concentrated on the future of mankind. Additionally, he compared it to what he considers to be the current state of modern entries. According to the allegations, he suggested that more recent Star Trek programming places an excessive amount of attention on modern political framing, identity classification, and overt messaging, rather than focusing on character-driven science fiction storytelling. According to the description, the primary source of annoyance is not the concepts that are present in Star Trek, but rather the manner in which those themes are portrayed. The most explosive part, the Starfleet Academy critique. The scenario became much more stressful when, according to reports, the topic of discussion shifted to Starfleet Academy, which is located within the Star Trek world. Pine is said to have expressed his disapproval of the show by using it as an illustration of what he considers to be the structural issue with modern Star Trek. In accordance with the allegations, he characterized it as being excessively focused on personality labels rather than identity labels, in the context of narrative depth, social framing, delivery of messages with regard to character arcs. Furthermore, it is devoid of the tonal elements that have always characterized the brand. Whether or not these remarks are entirely accurate, they have been the focal point of the discussion that is currently taking place. The woke line. Why it escalated everything. The usage of the word woke by Pine, as described in the interview, is the most contentious aspect of the supposed interview. It has been stated that he has described the present direction of Star Trek as placing an emphasis on ideological signaling rather than the quality of the storytelling. This single frame has become the spark that ignites a far bigger cultural debate than one may have anticipated. Since the moment that term is introduced into the debate, the topic of discussion shifts away from being solely about television. In this context, ideology, identity, and the interpretation of contemporary media become important. The immediate reaction. Two worlds collide. There was an instantaneous divide in the response into two different narratives. On the one hand, the comments are interpreted as authentic criticism from an individual who worked within the franchise and is pointing out a drop in creative output. The opposing viewpoint considers them to be a rejection of Star Trek's progressive identity that has been present for a long time and its development in contemporary narrative. Moreover, the outcome is not a discussion. Rather, it is an escalation. Almost immediately, there was an increase in the amount of attention that the entertainment media provided, with pieces framing the comments in a variety of various ways depending on the perspective. There were many who characterized the remarks as being harmful and backwards. Some people interpreted it as a confirmation of long-standing complaints that fans have had regarding the storytelling of modern Star Trek. The fan base split, a franchise at war with itself. When it comes to the fan base of the Star Trek world, the response has been equally divided. However, there is a side that agrees with the criticism and argues that Star Trek has moved away from nuanced storytelling and toward direct messaging, which is detrimental to the involvement with the narrative. As evidence that social commentary can be present in Star Trek without taking over the narrative, they cite to prior eras of the franchise. This perspective is fiercely rejected by the opposing camp, which contends that Star Trek has always been political in nature, and that contemporary storytelling simply reflects present circumstances in a more open manner. It is not disagreement that accounts for the peculiarity of this circumstance. It is a high level of intensity. The division appears to be progressively exacerbated by each and every reaction. Why Paramount is in a difficult position among those working at Paramount Plus, the anxiety that has been reported is not limited to public relations. Control of the narrative is at issue here, because there are now 3 pressures that are occurring simultaneously. A leading actor who has publicly voiced their disapproval of the franchise's direction. The reaction of a fan base that is divided and aggressive. In addition, persistent critique of recent productions of Star Trek. It is possible that any official response may strengthen one group while simultaneously alienating the other. You validate the criticism by defending the course that is currently being taken. Accept the criticism, and you undercut the creative strategy that you have developed for yourself. Should you choose to remain mute, you will completely lose control of the narrative. The business impact beyond online debate. There is a financial component to the debate, as well as a cultural one. The creation of Star Trek material for the streaming platform owned by Paramount is a costly endeavor. Furthermore, according to watchers of the sector, uncertainty and controversy may now be undermining confidence in long-term planning. In the event that audience division continues to become more pronounced, it poses a potential threat to the consistency of viewing across all future endeavors in the Star Trek universe. It is possible for perception alone to have an effect on decisions regarding investments, licensing alliances, and marketing strategy. The broader industry context. In addition, this problem is being considered in conjunction with debates of a similar nature in other prominent franchises. Long-running television programs in Hollywood have been subjected to criticism for their inability to strike a balance between contemporary thematic messaging and classic storytelling structure. There are certain initiatives that have received accolades for successfully managing that balance. In other cases, audiences have reacted negatively when they perceive that storytelling is being prioritized over messaging. In the event that it is reported accurately, the dispute surrounding Chris Pine has become a part of the larger industry discourse. Why this moment feels different. It is the identify of the individual who is allegedly uttering the statement that differentiates this kind of issue from the regular franchise controversy. Chris Pine is not a part of the cast in a minor capacity or an outside reviewer. In the world of recent Star Trek films, he is the face of the franchise. It is via his portrayal of Captain Kirk that the franchise is making an effort to update its fundamental identity in order to appeal to a younger audience. Because of this, his criticism that was reported has a far greater influence than the ordinary opinion from outside sources. Paramount's internal dilemma. It has been speculated throughout the industry that Paramount is currently confronted with multiple competing strategy paths. In the first place, they need to defend the current creative direction and ensure that they remain consistent with their approach. One further option is to modify one's leadership style and approach in response to criticism. A third option is to lessen the emphasis on Star Trek as a fundamental pillar of streaming services, and instead move the focus to titles that are less controversial. Each way is fraught with danger. The fundamental split that exists throughout the audience is not resolved by any of these. The cultural consequence. A franchise in dispute. Currently, the more fundamental problem is not limited to a single interview or a single performer. The focus is on the representation of Star Trek in the year 2026. Ideas that look to the future, optimism, and social commentary have always been the foundation around which the franchise has been constructed. The interpretation of how those components ought to be given, on the other hand, has now become a source of contention, and the battle is no longer confined to the individual. It is continuous, public, and emotional in nature. Where this story leaves Star Trek. The alleged statement from Chris Pine has not just created controversy, it has reopened a fundamental question about the identity of the Star Trek universe itself. Is it a franchise driven by modern cultural reflection? Or a storytelling universe built on allegory, optimism, and subtle exploration of ideas? Right now, there is no unified answer. And that uncertainty is exactly why Paramount Plus finds itself in crisis mode. Because the most dangerous kind of franchise problem is not rejection, it is division. And Star Trek is now living inside that division in real time. If this situation develops further, new statements, studio responses, or shifts in franchise direction, it could reshape the future of Star Trek storytelling entirely. So, stay tuned because this story is still unfolding. And what happens next could determine whether Star Trek stabilizes or enters its most uncertain era yet.